Hi everyone, my name's Emily. I'm one of the second year medical students, and in today's video I'm going to be answering some of the biggest questions I had about applying to university. So the biggest question I had about applying to university was probably to do with my interview. So as I do medicine, I had to do an entrance interview before I was offered a place. It was a little bit nerve-wracking, not gonna lie. I had to do quite a lot of preparation for it, but there's lots of good resources online, and I looked at a few question banks and went on the Newcastle University website where there were also some example questions, so it allowed me to have a bit of a practice beforehand and run through some topics, especially medical news that was in the news at the time, to be prepared about anything that could have been asked at interview. So the biggest questions I had about my course before I started were probably to do with the placements in years 1 and 2 and also the curriculum in years 1 and 2. So at medicine at Newcastle, we do have early patient contact within the first few months of starting. Luckily, during induction week, we had a big lecture where everything was explained to us, and we were also given our allocations for GP surgeries and hospitals quite quickly as well. For places that are more further away, the university does provide transport too, so everything gets sorted. In terms of the curriculum in years 1 and 2, everything's taught that is kind of like the groundwork that we need for years 3, 4 and 5, the clinical years. We're able to build upon that in a spiral curriculum, going back and making sure that we've revised everything that we need to know and made sure that we laid the foundation for the building blocks for the next bit of information. The biggest question I had about study at university was probably about how to balance independent study with the rest of the life that you're having at university. This could include things like part-time jobs. Personally, I do have a part-time job. I've always managed to balance it alongside study. Medicine can be quite intensive. You've got a lot of independent study, a lot of asynchronous work, pre-work, things that you have to do in preparation for lectures and seminars. But I've always found that working part-time along with my studies hasn't been too much of an issue. There are a lot of good study places on campus. Places like the Walton Library, which is on the top floor of the medical school, is really good for studying. You can also book out library rooms in advance if you need a little bit of a quiet area to work with friends, or on things like group work as well. The medical school does also have quite a lot of lectures in the Dame Margaret Barber building as well, which is just up the path, and there are some good study spaces in the foyer there as well. So there's lots of spaces you can study, especially if you don't like working from home, and I've always found that it's totally fine to balance both of them whilst having a part-time job. So the biggest question I had about living in Newcastle is what it would be like to study and also live at home. I'm actually from Newcastle and I live not too far from the university itself, so I decided to stay at home during my medicine degree. I was a little bit worried at first that, all of my friends would be living in student accommodation and they might make plans or make friendship groups that I wasn't a part of because I wasn't there, but that's really not the case. I'm always included in everything, and it means I can come home at the end of the day and still see family and friends that I made before going to university. The biggest question I had about Newcastle University as a whole would be what made it stand out from other universities to me. Personally, for my course medicine, I think that Newcastle University has some fantastic facilities. Like I was talking about earlier, the Walton Library is an amazing place to study. Newcastle University also has a fantastic clinical skills area to practice all of the skills, procedures and examinations you need when treating patients in the future. The anatomy department is fantastic. We're very lucky to have a pro section of all of our specimens, so we can see exactly what we need to. Newcastle University also has things that are not just related to your courses, things like the sports clubs and societies. There are so many of them, there has to be something for everyone. And finally as well, obviously Newcastle University is situated in a great place of England, very close to the coast, with a fantastic town in the centre which the university is really close to. So it's nice to know that everything that you could possibly need in an area is covered at Newcastle University. Thanks for listening everyone. I hope this video has been helpful in answering some of your biggest questions about coming to Newcastle Uni.